What's it going to take for the Miami Hurricanes defensive line to return to their juggernaut form?
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Dono, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC, and writer for Canes County at Rivals. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. On this loaded episode of Locked On Canes, we're going to talk with our special guest about what the Green Tree practice fields were like in the 80s and when he returned as a coach in late 90s, early 2000s. Pretty good Miami teams back in those days. Can this Miami Hurricanes team go all the way with the offense they have and the opportunistic defense? And when we bring on our special guest, we're going to talk about insights on Miami's defensive line. But before we introduce our guest for today, let's introduce the Truth Teller. It's a Truth Teller Tuesday here on Locked On Canes. Bruce Warner, how are you?
I'm doing great. Excited about this show. Excited to be 9-0. We did a show on Sunday morning, so here we are the second time this week. And I brought on a special guest because everywhere you look, you're on YouTube, listening to these shows, whatever. The offense is great. What about this defense? A lot of people blame the secondary. I'm not 100% sure it's all in the secondary. So I called up my friend Greg Mark, who's, according to Mark Caesar, Greg Mark is on his Mount Rushmore. He really is. He's got, Mark's got Sapp and Jerome. He's got Stubbs and Greg on the D line. So I need to ask him a lot of questions, but one of them is, Greg, what do you think the correlation between the secondary not playing that well and the defensive front four? Because it doesn't seem to me that they're making tackles in the backfield. Sometimes they're getting back there, but more often than not, our secondary is just, there's too much time. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, hello guys, and thank you for having me. First off, and
Thanks, Greg.
I just want to start off by saying, very happy where we're standing this minute. before we start talking about anything, that we need to fix, I'd like to say, hey, we've done a whole heck of a lot of good things so far this season. And obviously offensively, they're we all know what they've been doing, but on the defense, I think what we've seen is I think we get frustrated over our some of our performance during the game because we've seen what they're capable of doing at times in the game. When the crunch time is there, they've stood up and they've made plays that they needed to make at the end of the game. But they have given up some big plays, and I think a lot of that. And you talked about the correlation between the front and the back side of any defense. It's some of it is being on the same page. Having if you're gonna put defensive backs on an island and tell them to cover a guy man to man, we're gonna have to have some pressure on the quarterback in order to make that be successful. So that the front has to understand that. Defensive back field also has to understand and trust the front. So I think that's coming along. That cohesiveness, but we have been a little lacking in making the big play in the backfield on the defensive line. And I think a lot of that might come with, what I've seen is a little bit, and I would say, and I don't hesitate to say this because I think it's the same thing they're hearing in the coaches in the meeting rooms by their coaches is, just their ability to get off blocks, recognize plays, eye discipline, and and just playing within the defensive scheme. I think sometimes what happens is we put a lot of pressure on each individual to have to make this big play, and they really don't. They just need to be able to play together, play as a team, cover their responsibility. You'll see a lot of times where a big hole opens up. That's because I think somebody's trying to do a little too much. I don't see a whole lot of other teams just running us off the ball and blocking us 5 yards down the field. I think it's sometimes we're just out of position, and that's something that can be fixed on the practice field and in the meeting room.
Yeah, we talked about when with Tyler Barron taking some bad angles, and instead of going up the field and then, like you told me, he's going right in that gap, and he plays himself right out of the play, and he's done that a few times this year. Is that what you mean? People being individuals instead of worrying about the team concept?
Yeah, and I don't know if it's much as being individuals. I think it's understanding the team concept, as you say,
Yeah.
where each defense, each player has a responsibility depending on which blocking scheme they get or which reads they get, and I think as you're developing a defense, the trust level needs to be there. When you get linebackers need to trust that the D line's going to be filling the gaps they're supposed to fill, so they have the freedom to run, and obviously that filters back to the back end, so we know what holes and where we need to put the defensive backs need to fill into. So it's a whole defensive scheme. Everybody obviously defensive line stops the run, defensive back stop the pass. That's how it all kind of seems to in our minds be, but that's not really the truth. It's a whole 11 on the field need to know where everybody's at, trust everybody, and not try to do too much.
Yeah, but one quick thing though, Alex. It seems to me like they substitute on a D line constantly. So I don't know how you could have a team playing unified when there's different guys all the time. I mean, you guys, when you played, you guys stayed in the game most of the time. If somebody came in to replace one of the D tackles or something, Jimmy Jones, who only was a third round pick for Dallas coming off the bench. But there's like 10, 12 different D linemen in the game. How could you be playing together?
Well, and that's part of it too. It's what we talk about with the offensive line. They got to be all one unit and be cohesive. They have to play together. When you start getting in guys that may get dinged up and injured, and you start inserting guys that haven't played that much, you lose a little bit of that cohesiveness. And I think it's the same thing on the defensive line. Unfortunately, I think there's other factors in play when you're talking about rotating guys in there. We're trying to keep a bunch of guys happy as well.
Right.
Plus, they're very talented. Now, I mean, so I think from a coaching standpoint and what we used to do in the past and how we did it might be a little outdated to what has to happen now moving forward to try to keep your roster full the next year and moving looking forward. And it's a little different of a political game to a degree, but that all being said, I don't want to get into all those types of conspiracy theory. I think really, if I were still had a say and I was there getting in the meeting room, I think we just and I think it's especially important as we get into playing. The stakes get higher and higher as we move forward. Is consistent technique, playing with your hands, getting off of blocks, playing within yourself, playing within the defense, and not trying to do too much, not get too high, not to get too low. Let's and continue to really reiterate that with the defense as a whole.
Well, and Greg, I'd like your take on how opposing offenses can try to scheme, like knowing Miami's defensive line is the strength of that D, and also knowing that there maybe have been some tackling issues in the back end. Because when I went back and watched the Duke game for a second time, it was really noticeable. They had a very good game plan and a good quarterback to execute it, getting rid of the football really quickly and not really giving Miami time to create that kind of pressure. So I think part of the reason why we look back and say, oh, how did they only get one sack? Talking about the Miami defense, only one sack, only 4 tackles for loss in the game. I thought Duke was very prepared for that. So is there a way defensively for Miami to kind of counter scheme that, if that's going to be the approach?
I mean, if teams are going to do that, obviously we're going to have to, the back end's going to have to make the plays. I mean, I did watch a little bit of the Duke game again as well, and you look at the final scoreboard, you look at where we were, take away some 50-50 balls, throw up there balls. You take away the one drive where I think we had 3 15-yarders to drive them down the field. Maybe I might be off. Might have been 4 penalties. Who knows? But it was a penalty assisted drive that we allowed to have happen. You take a couple of those instances away, and the game's going to look a little bit more out of hand and more like it should have. But more to your point as far as scheme goes, yeah, I think given some disguises on the back end, not being so predictable, will allow the front make sure that the quarterback has to hold the ball another split second, think a little bit, go through another read, would help the D line get home, which in turn would help the DBs cover a little bit, better. But I think just letting we have some extremely talented D linemen. I mean, I watch them and they're very impressive physically. They've got a lot of
Oh,
skills.
yeah.
They can rush the passer, but I see us doing a lot of scheming up front, which is a little bit of a negative when it comes to just getting straight pass rush. We're trying to cover a couple different things. Trying to run a game to cover, yes, open up some pass lanes, but you're also covering a draw play or a quarterback run. So you're having these multiple scenarios that you're having to cover, and you're not just letting those guys pin their ears back and get off the ball. And for whatever reason, I don't know the reason but if there's a way to that in the scheme of the defense, which I'm sure there is to start disguising the back end a little more, make that quarterback have to read one, and go to the next read. I think that's where we'll see a lot more production from the defensive line, because we're getting there, we're making a move, but we just got to get home. Also, pass rush lanes. Oh my gosh,
Yes,
my
sir.
wife will not. Oh, she keeps telling me, I yell upfield shoulder, upfield shoulder, upfield shoulder. Nothing drives me more crazy when you get either a free run or a great pass rush, and you run right down the center of the quarterback, and he spins out and breaks contain. She yells at me for yelling upfield shoulder all the time. But I think understanding where your help is will allow us we'll get the guy on the ground a little easier as well, and keep that quarterback contained from running.
Greg, you know darn well she yells at you for more than just that. So.
Yeah, my wife can't even watch games with me because I get she's like, "Why are you so emotional?" I'm like, "It's my team." Oh, hold on. I think we lost Greg for a second. We will relocate Greg Mark here, and when we come back, I want to talk about because Bruce, you mentioned Greg Mark is on that Mount Rushmore of Miami defensive linemen, but there's a certain guy on the team right now who might end up in that Mount Rushmore when it's all said and done. So you guys want to keep it locked right here. We are only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Folks, I am so happy we have this great partnership with Roy. It's time to recognize the Roy Player of the Week. So far this season, we pooled over $20,000 to support players on Roy. Micro deposits lead to massive change. With the Roy app, you can direct your support to the athletes you love, ensuring that all funds go to the specific player you choose. Unlike collectives, you know exactly where your support is going, and you even receive exclusive content like personal videos and updates after the season. The best part, it's risk-free. If the athlete transfers or doesn't deliver the content, you get your money back. This week, we're supporting Xavier Restrepo, and why the heck not? Guys, we just pitched in $100. I'd love for you to join me. Even $10 makes a difference. Xavier Restrepo first of all, he's having an incredible year. But last week, he breaks the record for all-time receiving yards at Miami and also ties the records for career receptions and career reception touchdowns. X is leaving his impact, and the love that we give him can help keep him connected to Miami. Remember, pay today, celebrate tomorrow. Your support sets your team up for success. Plus, don't miss out on Roy's exciting giveaway. Win 2 tickets to a game in November, any game. Just download Roy, create an account, and enter referral code LOCKEDON, and you're entered. Already on Roy? Any contribution to an athlete's campaign also gets you entered automatically. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. Download Roy now and join the NIL game with no subscriptions and no fees. And be sure to check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and X at Roy_return_on_you for more info. Folks, we are also proudly brought to you by the great people at FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Guys, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you've got a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. For your next listen, make sure you check out Locked On College Football. Spencer McLaughlin does an awesome job taking you through all the big games and big storylines Locked On College Football is available like this show, free wherever you get your pods and free on YouTube. So Greg Mark, by the way, who joins us, former Miami Hurricanes defensive end, Sports Hall of Famer, two-time national champion as a player, national champion as a coach as well in 2001 at Miami. And, Bruce mentioned, he's right. You're in that Mount Rushmore on the Miami Hurricanes D-line. I think there's a player, at least one player who's on that D-line right now who may, try to get himself on that Mount Rushmore before it's all said and done, and that's Ruben Hurricane Bane, who I can't say enough about the impact that he brings to Miami and the impact he brings to college football. Greg, when you watch Ruben Bain, what jumps out to you most about him?
Well, first off, he's a terrific young man. Let's start off with that. Hard worker, dedicated, says all the right things. Excellent teammate from all things here. So that in itself, put that on top of awesome athletic ability, quickness. He's got a lot of those intangibles that size and speed don't cover. He's got the ability to run on edges, change direction. He's got a high football IQ, as they say, because I see him understanding blocks and where the ball's going to go and setting up the offensive players to get off and make plays. And he's just tenacious, man. He gets after it. He's got a lot of energy, a lot of quickness and ability. I think he could play anywhere along the line. I mean, if I'm on that coaching staff, I'm trying to see where I'm trying to match him up in definite passing downs against their worst offensive lineman. I'm gonna put him inside, outside, wherever we can find a place to let him do his thing. Because a guy like that can change the dynamic of a game individually. He can go and he can wreck a whole offense. If I'm opposing offensive coordinator, I'm going to scheme against him. So we move him around, put him a few places. I think we can might be able to get more effectiveness out of him. But I can't effectiveness and bigger plays that he's capable of making.
Yeah, Sapp was like that. He was like a one-man wrecking crew. You had to always account for him. I remember you were with the Giants. Lawrence Taylor was like that. You had to scheme for him because if you didn't, you're in big trouble. But
he beat you down.
Yeah, but Bain is good. Simeon Barrow's having a good year. I thought when they got into the fall practice, they had a defensive line that was really, really good. I thought we'd see a ton of sacks and plays getting busted up in the backfield, but it's not really it's not happening like I thought. They're doing pretty well, but they're not as good as I thought.
I think you're being a little hard on them. I think they're doing. I think they're doing very well.
That's your opinion. That's why you call me the truth teller. I thought they'd be better. I'm being honest with you. I thought they'd be better than this.
I have a bunch of different perspectives from it. As a former player, I know what they're going through. As a former coach, I know what the coaches are going through. I know they're on. There's a fine line between that big play and just causing an incomplete pass.
Right.
We love them both. Don't get me wrong, but that big play changed games, and we're right there. We're right there in a lot of different. And just how do you get them to create those game-changing plays, to make them at the end, to follow through, and and I think some of it, it's a game of inches, it's a game of split seconds. I think as we're going into game 10, so you can't say they're still learning. But I think they need to continue to improve on just the technique of escaping blocks, understanding where the ball is going, go back to basics, and I think because what you're saying is in training camp or in spring ball, that's all they do. They're not running schemes. They're just going out there lining up, and it's man on man, and you let them eat. Right. I think we need to try to get back to that a little bit, give them that confidence to go and. Trust me, I understand the importance of schemes and running games and covering this. Every defensive coordinator wants to cover the screen, the draw, the power run, the deep ball, the slants, all in the same defensive call. You can't. I mean, but you can get out there and play solid and have guys in the right position, because if they know where they're going and they know what's coming at them, that speed that they have, they can run at top speed. When they have to think and they have to react and now that 4.5 is a 4.8, that 4.9s of 5.2. Your reaction times. So you put them in those types of positions, I think, is something that I would, if again, if I had a call, I would try to really emphasize going into to the final stretch of the season here.
Do you
Now,
think they
Greg,
should blitz more?
I'd like to.
Do you think
Sorry.
they should
Let me
blitz
get
more,
some.
or does that jeopardize our secondary even more?
well,
He probably
flip
wants
the
to say
coin.
yes.
Yeah.
I think there's, blitzing has a lot of different faces. Okay, so you don't have to just put guys on islands to bring an extra man in a rush,
Right.
to put a little bit more pressure on the protection. You can 5-man it, you can 6-man it, as far as rushing goes. Depending on your where you're at and what the situation is. I think when you start getting reliant on blitzing as your ability, to create your ability for pressure on the quarterback, you become a whole lot more susceptible. You become open to the big plays that we've seen happen in the past. So I don't think that's the answer. I think mixing them in
Yeah,
strategically,
that's what I
yes, could
meant, Greg.
definitely
I
help.
meant mixing
Yeah.
it in. I don't mean all the time, because I know our secondary's got problems staying with guys. But every once in a while, not always on 3rd and long, too. You could do it on a different down and make it 2nd or 3rd and even longer.
Well, we used to have those intellectual meetings and those what if meetings in our meeting rooms in the day. I remember sitting with Greg Sheehan, and we go back and he'd say, "What if we just blitzed every down? What would happen?"
It's so
Who we
Shiano.
playing? My question was, who we playing?
Yeah.
Because there's teams you
Well,
can do that
and
to.
I
There's
want to
teams you
ask
can't do
you,
that.
your perspective as a defensive lineman and a defensive line coach, what's it like going up against a guy like Cam Ward? Because Greg, this guy does magic tricks in the pocket. Like, you
Yeah.
talk about finishing sacks. What kind of headaches is he giving to opposing D lines and D line coaches?
Oh, he's a generational type of quarterback, as we see. I mean, the things he does back there. So, from a defensive line perspective, I love it when he does it. But from a D line perspective, it gets frustrating because you put all that effort, you get there, you beat the guy, you beat a double team, you beat the chip block, whatever it is, and then he does some sort of magic trick, and he's gone. So, you know for he what we would say in that, we would like to just contain Cam. I think in a rush, when you get a quarterback like that, I think when you're just running at him and you're going at him, and he's going to make things happen. I think if you can
Yeah.
contain him and keep him in the pocket, keep him in there, happen to make those throws on an every down, but have them execute. Don't let them go out and make magic happen. Make them execute the call that they have in the huddle, and that's kind of what you have to do with that. Contain. You're not going to stop them, but understand you can contain them. That would be kind of the direction I think we would go. And then pray a lot.
Yeah, pray a lot. Well, I want to talk on the other side about, just because, again, this is a special Miami Hurricanes team. They're off to a 9-0 start. They control their destiny when it comes to, if they keep winning, they'll be in the ACC championship game. If they keep winning, they'll be in the college football playoffs. So I want to continue the conversation here with the truth teller
Sure.
and with Greg Mark. You guys want to keep it locked right here, because we're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Tell you, my greatest tool during this football season, because I love to watch all the games. Sometimes I'm up late for post-game shows. I like to have a few cocktails before I go to bed, and Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct. It's in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel at your best tomorrow. Step 1, drink pre-alcohol. For best results, make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Step 2, drink responsibly. Pace yourself, hydrate, get a good night's sleep. Step 3, enjoy tomorrow. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. Go to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege and use the code LOCKEDONCollege at checkout for 15% off. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. I am Alex Dono. We got the truth teller, Bruce Warner, with us. Bruce was kind enough to bring Greg Mark along for the ride. Three-time national champion, 2 as a player, 1 as a coach at Miami. And, you know, Greg, this team, they're winning a different way than some of the teams that you were on. Statistically, best offense in Miami Hurricanes history, one of the best in college football history. You know, we've talked about the uneven play of the defense, but the defense has been opportunistic. They've stepped up when it mattered most. Your big picture take, Greg, on this team so far, and do you think this is the type of team that could end up in that college football playoff and make it a run this year?
Without a doubt. I mean, I think they've proven it. Hey, listen, everybody that's on TV, all the analysts, they have a job. They got to make it happen. They got to throw doubt.
Yeah.
You know, it really comes. Listen, you start the season with a schedule. You don't make the schedule. That schedule's been made years in the past most times. So your job as a player, as a coach, is to win every game that's on your schedule. So far, we've done that. So I think from a standpoint of getting the job done to this point, you know, obviously there's been different ways we've got there, but we got there. I'd rather learn lessons, and we've always talked about this as coach. I'd rather learn the hard lessons and win the game than to learn those hard lessons and come out with a loss.
Yeah.
It's a whole better Sunday, and it's a better outlook into the remainder of the season. This team, to me, without a doubt, they're in the mix. I mean, I don't see anybody out there in college football that they can't play with. We can't score on. And obviously, there's other teams that are starting to rise to the top as well. But you know, we're just going to have to continue to do the little things. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let the fans, let us old folk, old alumni and analysts get ahead of the situation. As a team, they need to just keep focusing on the fundamentals, focusing on, like Mario says, we're 0-0 right now. Let's be 1-0 after this Saturday.
You know, I made a statement the other day, Greg. I made a statement, so I want your thoughts on this statement. Alex knows what I'm going to say. I said Miami put so much pressure on the opposing defense and the opposing team. From the outside looking in, they almost have to play a perfect game or a near perfect game to beat us. We've made mistakes in games. We've been down 25 points in games. We were losing in the fourth quarter in games, and we still win. The other teams just cannot afford to make more than maybe one mistake, and it'll be over for them. What do you think?
Well, agreed. When you have such a prolific offense, you know, or at least one side of the ball, you know, which it happens to be offense for us this year, and what they've been able to do, it's been incredible. No, without a doubt. Listen, you watched the game last night, Monday night game. You know, it's like having that the Chiefs team. I mean, they're not great on defense. They make plays, they do things, you know, but don't give them the ball last.
Yeah, give them the ball last.
You know, and I think, you know, and not to compare our team with them by any stretch of imagination, but just from a standpoint of how the games are won. I mean, every game is going to be different going into this. Every team, you're right. Their job and what they're trying to do is contain. What from their standpoint, they know that they can't squander their possessions or they're going to get outscored. So you know, yeah, I think the pressure is extreme is definitely on the other team to not make those mistakes, and when they do, you know, they know our offense is capitalized on it, and if we just can make our halftime adjustments on defense before the game.
Yeah,
we're gonna stop everybody too. So I really like what the coaches have done there. So yeah, you get a half to try to figure it out and try to get as big a lead as you can on us, because the second half, you better not be in arm's length, because we're gonna catch you.
Alex and I text during the games all the time. We were up 14-0 the other day. He was texting me, "It's over." And I said, "It's over." But it wasn't over. They scored 2 touchdowns in like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
You can't blink. And yet, you know, and then the Cal game, we were down 35-10 and we won. Are you serious? That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So they do.
By the way, I love
Yeah.
I love texting. I love texting with Bruce during games because Bruce and I, like, we say all the things to each other on our text messages that I'm glad I don't say on social media.
Oh yeah.
Because I don't want to be one, because I see so many Miami fans, when Miami is struggling at parts of games, they're like, we're terrible, we got exposed, you got to fire this guy and that guy, and then after the game Miami wins, you feel so stupid. So I get that stuff out of the way in a private conversation with Bruce instead of putting it out there on the record.
Well, and also, listen, I'm not a gambler by any stretch of imagination, but we covered last week too.
Right.
How the heck we do that?
Yeah.
I
Right.
mean, it's
Yeah.
especially being up 14. Now, I always say, and in the beginning of the game, and it's not 100% the truth, but when you score easy your first drive or run the kickoff back, something in that age group of men that are out there, it's such an emotional game. It lets the guard down. Every time we score, go right down the field, I always go, oh no, we're gonna have to. It's gonna be a tough one because for some reason the mentality once we do it, we think it's going to be easy. I think this team needs to be punched in the face a few times,
Yeah.
to wake up, and then they know they're in a fight, and you know what they've done when they're in a fight, they've come out and won every one of them. So so I would tell the fans and myself and everybody in my suite and all you guys texting, let's get to the second half before we go cuckoo crazy.
Yeah, it's
Right.
like
Well,
we're in a boxing match and we've won all 9 rounds, but it's still a fight and it's not over yet. So,
Yeah.
now we're going for our 10th win. I think we're going to win the next 3 games. I don't know if it's going to be easy or hard, but whatever. I don't think we're going to lose. I just don't, because as I said, my motto for this year, I said it in the spring: who is going to stop this offense? And so far, so good. I've been right. Who's going to stop them? Really, nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody. And you said it, and get into the playoffs. We may lose, but they're not going to stop. They're not going to shut us down. There's just no way.
Yeah, I mean, the margin of error gets less and less as you
Of
get
course it
further
does.
into the season. So,
Right.
as
Yeah.
you well know, especially now, this playoff system, who knows? Nobody knows yet. This is all brand new stuff. It's so. But if you can go back and compare it to something, it's comparing it to a conference championship, playing a multiple conference championships back to back. Football playoffs. Obviously we see the NFL and how that goes. It's just a series. We just need to get there first.
Mhm.
Then it's a new season. Then you start win to win to win. So yeah, it's going to be difficult for another team to come in and stop us with only a week or so preparation time. You get to these bowl games and you got 3-4 weeks to prepare for something. Then maybe you give a team a chance to scheme you and give you some trouble. But this is going to be interesting. I'm excited going into this and looking forward to it without a doubt. I think we've got that type of talent on our team on both sides, especially on offense, dynamic to be in every game and any game going forward. Who knows? When you're right, we may not win them, but I'm pretty confident that we're going to go in and we're going to bloody some people's noses and continue to be competitive throughout the rest of this year and into the playoffs, hopefully.
Well, I got to say, time flies because we're going to need to bring Greg on the show again at some point because I want to talk more about his days as a player and as a coach. But time flies when you're having fun. Time flies when you're 9-0. You're right there in the ACC championship picture. So, Greg, Mark, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights. I certainly learned a lot today.
Well, I thank you guys for having me. I apologize if I get a little talkative at times. I kind of get a little fired up over my Canes, and as we all do.
That's what we
So
wanted you here
anytime-
for, man. That's what we wanted you for.
That's what we wanted.
So will you do
Anytime
another
you guys
show?
need me.
Greg, will you do it again? I'll call you.
Without a doubt. I'll be here tomorrow if you need me. You let me know. I'll fix this technology crap. You let me know. I'll talk Canes anytime, anywhere with you guys. Appreciate what you guys do, and looking forward to the watching you guys for the remainder of this year.
And we did not discuss sealing the edge, which is what you and I always talk about.
Well,
right?
My wife can probably help with that because she hears me yell all the time. So yes, for sure. There's still a lot of things we can dissect.
Yeah.
But thank you guys for having me.
Huge thank you to Greg, Mark. Huge thanks to Bruce Warner, to everyone who took time to listen and watch this episode of Locked On Canes. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your pods. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow on another episode of Locked On Canes, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.